And now hurricane season is coming up, and it looks like it could be a very active one. NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, has predicted a 60% chance of 13 to 19 named storms. The agency is predicting 3 to 6 of those storms could be major hurricanes. For more on this, let us bring in Jeff Berardelli. He's our climate specialist and meteorologist. So, Jeff, walk us through some of these predictions. They sound pretty dire.
Yeah, so, this is totally expected, by the way, because all the other forecast outlets have predicted a very strong hurricane season as well. So here's what NOAA is predicting. They're saying 13 to 19 named storms. Just keep in mind that 12 is the normal there. So that's certainly on the high end. In terms of hurricanes, they're predicting 6 to 10 hurricanes. And the normal is 6. And in terms of major hurricanes, around 3 to 6 hurricanes. Major hurricane, by the way, is a hurricane with winds of 110 miles an hour or more. So they are forecasting a pretty intense hurricane season. By the way, Penn State is predicting maybe 19 or 20 storms. University of Arizona is predicting 18 or 19 storms. The point is that we're thinking that this is likely to be a very active season, and it's because all of the ingredients are lining up across the Atlantic and actually in the Pacific Ocean as well.
We are already dealing with a crisis. We're dealing with a pandemic here. I'm wondering, the impact of the coronavirus pandemic, should we sort of barrel into hurricane season and it turns out as bad as they're predicting. I can't imagine how you impose social distancing when you have, a shelter in a school gymnasium.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's also what officials are thinking about as well, Anne-Marie. So they're already trying to think of what we can do. Maybe we can open up more shelters. This way, if people go to shelters, there'll be some social distancing there. It's certainly something we're concerned about, and it's something that climate scientists, by the way, talk about all the time. It's called this idea of compound events or compound extreme events happening. And now, of course, we have COVID-19 coinciding with hurricane season. How does a society deal with all these multiple disasters happening at the same time? We have coronavirus right now, but, we're starting to see more of these climate disasters line up on top of each other. Heat waves, hurricanes, fires, all happening during the same general time of year does cause a lot of problems. And so that's something we're going to be testing, unfortunately, this summer. And what I think a lot of us are concerned about is that people won't go to shelters. If they're in mobile homes, they'll decide we're going to stay here. I don't want to expose myself to coronavirus. And there's a real danger in that.
So, Jeff, what do we know about why we're seeing this above average likelihood for hurricanes this season?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, we're in this multi-decadal cycle. We started it in 1995, and it seems to be continuing. We go in these 30-year cycles or so where we have an uptick in activity in the Atlantic and then a downtick in activity, and we've seen that happen over the past century or so. We're in an active period right now, but the short-term reasons why we're predicting an active season is it's very warm in the Atlantic right now. It's been above normal for several months in most of the Atlantic, including the Caribbean, the main development region in the eastern tropical Atlantic, and generally speaking, most of the Gulf of Mexico as well. In addition, the Pacific Ocean. So we had an El Nino, a weak one last year. This year, it looks like we may switch to La Nina or close to La Nina. If that happens, all the statistics show that when you have a La Nina in the Pacific Ocean, you have an active hurricane season in the Atlantic Ocean. Also, the African monsoon is increased a little bit. So we have a little bit of extra activity moving off of Africa. Those waves of low pressure sometimes form into tropical systems, and the more you have, the better chance that you have of hurricanes forming.
Okay, so a lot of activity. What about intensity? Because we've seen some pretty intense storms over the past few years.
Yeah. So over the past 5 years, we've had 6 Category 5 hurricanes. And really, I think it was over 4 years we had 6. So we'll see what happens this year. That's rare. Since the satellite era in the 1970s, we've only had 26 in the Atlantic Category 5 hurricanes. So that's a lot in a very short period of time. NOAA just did some research, came out this week, saying that major hurricanes, Category 3 and above, are now a lot more likely than they were earlier in the century. So actually, he started his research in the 1970s. So even since the 1970s, we've seen an increase in the amount of major hurricanes due to warmer water. And globally, not just the Atlantic. So it can't just be these regional natural cycles. it has to be attributed, at least most of it, to climate change. We have warmer water. Waters have warmed by about 1 degree Celsius in the tropics. It's about 2 degrees Fahrenheit. And when you have warmer water, you have more fuel, you have stronger storms. We are seeing that happen in real time, and there's no doubt that that's going to happen in the future. There is a scientific consensus gathering around the fact that storms are going to get more intense, and now we see it. They're already getting more intense. And one thing I should say, and I always like to bring it up, if you compare two storms, one with winds of 75 miles an hour, another with winds of 150 miles an hour, you might think, well, then it'll cause twice the damage. It doesn't. It causes 250 times the amount of damage. And it actually scales into the 1,000 times the amount of damage once you get into the 170, 180 mile an hour wind range like we had with Irma and Hurricane Dorian the past couple of years.
Wow, Jeff. All right. Well, thank you so much. I know often when you're doing weather, you're the bearer of not so great news, but it's information we need to know.
Sorry.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
I'll bring better news next time.
All right, thanks. We appreciate it.